This is exactly how I help agencies that I work with reduce their churn into the ground through a customized client-facing reporting automation tool. And today I'll be showing you exactly how you can build something very similar for your own sake so that you never have to do reporting manually again, basically. But if it's your first time to the channel, welcome. My name's Adrian. I've been helping hundreds of businesses across the last 5 or so years completely automate their processes, whether that be on the front end or back end for that regard. But yeah, today effectively I'll be showing you how you can replicate something along the lines that I showed a couple of seconds ago through Claude. And in general, after the video, you're going to have a skill down below which you can take, download, use to whatever your accordance may be, whether it be just pumping into your own Claude Code infrastructure or just using as a part of a bigger project. So without any further ado, let's jump in. So first and foremost, what do we need to do? We need to set up Claude Code in any way, shape, and form. So if you head on over to claude.com/product/Claude Code, you can just download it directly for Windows, and then you can have it either on your terminal, web, iOS, Android, GitHub, VS Code, wherever you prefer. Ideally, if you're a beginner, you can just jump into Claude's own infrastructure, go to code. But for today's purposes, we are going to be jumping into the designated area over here that I have within anti-gravity, which is one of the IDEs such as, VS Code and so on, but should work the same, hence even would be easier for you. But taking it top to bottom there, after you got the setup, what the hell do we do? Well, first and foremost, we figure out in very concrete steps where and how do we do even reports for our clients, right? So when you think about it on a weekly basis, on a bi-weekly basis, on a monthly basis, how do you actually report your clients? So ideally, you're probably going to have some kind of CRM/project management or both systems in mind. So for example, over here in ClickUp, which is one of the tools that I utilized. Like, hey, we have a CRM with specific clients that we're currently working on specific projects with. It's like Samantha's getting onboarded, so nothing on that regard. Then, we have one-time people, recurring customers, some that have paused, some that are finished, and so on and so on. You just figure this out. Then, where does your client communication appear? Does that appear through, say, for example, Gmail in that regard? Does that appear in another tool, for example? Maybe you guys use Freshdesk or something. Whatever it may be, you just get to figure out all of the tools, and your first go-to step is just actually going to Claude and figuring out, can you actually create connectors directly here? Because if you can, half your job's done. If you can't, it's going to be a bit tougher because we're going to have to utilize other extensions to get there, but Claude's pretty good at it. So first and foremost, let's see. For example, over here, if you have a project management system where you can neatly track what in each and every step of the way is. You have your time estimates, time tracked. Maybe you have some comments over here that you'd like the client to know about before the next brief. It's like, got everything from the client, or, we need to start on a specific task, telling to your team, or perhaps we need to let the client know you're going to need more data points in order to fulfill something. Anything that you got, you just think about it straight now, get it out of the way. Then once we actually, start creating this thing, we have everything in mind. So it's like, oh, alrighty. So we just start prompting. You can either use voice prompting for this, or you can jump in directly by writing, but I'll definitely go with voice here. Hey, I want to generate a new skill, which is going to generate reports for the clients that I'm currently working with on a basis whenever I want to call it. It should be able to pull every single detail about the specific projects I'm working on with these clients through ClickUp. That's the majority of the knowledge. And I, of course, want some briefs from Gmail, for example. It should generate something in a very, very nice client forwarding facing format. And it should pick up the style of. That was a very specific thing I missed before, but it's like, how do you want to style this? You can style it however you'd like. If you have a specific style for your clients, you can always provide the website of your own client being like, hey, generate in their kind of tone of voice, or you can just take a link from their own page, pump it in, or if you just like, you just use your own branding if that's something that you're up for. But I'm just going to take this generated HTML and GSS, and I'm just going to paste it in. Use this as inspiration for the aesthetics. I just want it to be a one single pager PDF generated that I can send over to my client. This is a demo build, so feel free to just generate the emails. We don't actually have to connect it to my Gmail, but we are going to be connecting it to ClickUp, which you can access through my APIs. The very specific workspace I want you to list from is, and let me see what my workspace is. So basically give it just front down info, like exact. So it's Connective Consulting Chicago on that front. So this is exactly what we're going to be utilizing. Connective Consulting Chicago. And yeah, you're pretty much off to the races. You can feed that in. Now, the only reason why I said here that I don't want to pull in through email is because it is a bit of a more complex process and I don't have it set up in the demo workspace that I'm working on. But how would you actually do it within Claude? Well, you would just jump down to this little plus icon, you would go to connectors, and you can see over here Gmail is already active. This is actually going to hop up or pop up when you try and connect it, like a little auth window. You just give it authorization and you're pretty much off to the races. Outside of that, now it's just a matter of waiting and seeing what this comes up with, and it's probably going to ask some questions, it's thinking, but yeah, it's gonna start understanding what you're working with. And then in terms of getting your APIs, most of the time what you're gonna do is you're gonna click on your own icon in all of these tools, go to settings, and usually you should see something that says tool name API. You can click on that, you can connect your API, and then you can just chuck it over in the env file without chucking it within these messages. But that's exactly another point why I mentioned perhaps Claude would be easier for you, because it basically does this on the front end for you. But yeah, let's see what it comes up with here, and just let it run. And boom, pretty much done. As we can see over here, says done, skills built, even told me how to use it, and told me what it does. So fetch is live from, the apps that we absolutely need, yada yada, and it went ahead and generated this report. So where the generate depends on where you use. If you go into Claude, it's going to tell you a specific, it's probably just going to do this within your own Claude, or Cloud, my bad, little workspace you set up over here. If you're preferring to work off of, your CLI or an ID, is just going to drop it in a folder for you. So over here we can see we have a report both in HTML and a PDF. As we can see, this PDF has gotten generated. Tad bit small, so let's zoom in a bit. So yeah, effectively it's telling what the progress is, what the delivery progress is, depending on how many different steps we have, how many work streams are currently active, how many hours have been delivered. If you guys, work off of hourly, that's something you can for sure include. What the target launch is. Not only that, but you have highlights this period, aka what happened over the course of X, Y, and Z date period during the work of the project, as well as action items needed from the client. So sharing additional performance data points for current channels and granting access to existing creative libraries so you can build on brand, which were a couple of points actually made. If we scroll back over here to the actual client itself, we can see that we have spoken about over here, we need to let the client know we'll need more data points and access to creative. So pretty much everything in summary on that regard, as well as this other data point that it generated, meaning highlights this period and so on. It just generated or took some data, like if we were actually communicating through email and so on and so on. So yeah, that's pretty much how it looks like. If you wish to, utilize this skill on your behalf, which I'll be dropping in for you, you're going to just answer to a couple of its questions. I'm going to tailor it in a way where it's going to ask you what different types of tools you're going to utilize, and it's going to help you set it up basically within your infrastructure, and then and only then you're going to start generating. But, proving a point even further on, if I wanted to run this, say, against another client, which in this workspace that's demo is John Smith, I can basically, jump over here, and as it already mentioned, I can just, type in /client report, and I can type in, John Smith on that regard, and I can just let it run, and it's going to run the exact same script that it needs to just across this client that's named John Smith. So we're gonna let that run because I actually wanted to address a point. So that was simple. That was like, hey, now we have reports that we can generate, we can send, and so on. And of course, multiple ways you can take this to newer heights, right? Sky's the limit when it comes down to this. The very specific instance I showcased off, this was actually a live dashboard, not only for the purposes of, reporting to clients, but for reporting within the agency itself. So you can go wild with this. Like, you don't have to be constrained by any way, shape, and form to just the very specific reports. And I actually recorded another video on this, which you can absolutely check out somewhere in the corner, should pop up right there. But yeah, when we go across how do you actually create a dashboard and anything and everything, and then it all comes down to your taste, right? Once you've figured out how to utilize this, it's all about, hey, what HTML do we use? How do we render it that it looks really, really nice? And how do we tabulate between clients? But yeah, you can do anything and everything. You can even create like a client custom pro portal, which I might even record a video upon, very similar to this, which might even, help even in that regard. But yeah, over here, as you can see, now it's generating a report for John Smith and pulling live data from ClickUp, basically going through this exact same process. Going to read through these comments being like, hey, could we get this done by Friday? And more specifically, post client, that update will be ready a bit earlier than usual, and so on and so on. Then it's going to generate that report, and we're off to the races, basically. But yeah, you can go wild with this in every way, shape, and form that you possibly imagine. So let's just let it spin up over here and see. And yeah, here we go. pretty much done. This is the cool thing about Claude. So effectively, it also told me, like, one thing I'll flag honestly, and what wanted to flag is that since we don't have any inputs from the client, it didn't really generate anything down here. Hence why I left a little bit of a white gap. So if that, is a problem, then you can just tell it, oh, just remove it and make it shrink when it comes down to it. But yeah, again, picked up everything perfectly. And not only that, it actually went above and beyond and started generating emails as well. So yeah, again said, sky's the limit on how you take this. Email's pretty good. You can give it your own. You can connect this, as if you can imagine, if you have some kind of SOP place such as Coda, or if you keep any kind of workflow for documents, even in ClickUp, if you have capability to push in documents, you can also connect that to your Claude infrastructure over here through your connectors, and you can just tell the skill to pick up your own tone of voice in any way, shape, and form, so that you don't even have to worry about that. And then every single time that this email, for example, gets generated, it's gonna, pick up as much as humanly possible to whatever it needs to for your own sake. But yeah, in a nutshell, pretty much it. Hope I brought that just a tad bit closer to you guys when it comes down to how you can simply just reduce your churn, but just because you show your clients what you're actually doing without them having to feel the need of, like, any kind of regret on working with you, or is actually anything getting moved, the needle moving in that regard. But yeah, pretty much it. I'll again link this entire skill down below, which is going to ask you questions on how and what you guys utilize for it, and then after you give it answers, it's going to set its own workspace up as well. Just before you even do it, feel free to connect anything and everything that you'd like to Claude, and then just bang it out from there. You can basically change it, do whatever you'd like with it, and just absolutely evolve and crush it into this space. So yeah, hopefully that helped. If you're a business owner looking for any kind of solutions, currently working on another project, feel free to drop that, booking down below in the calendar. I'll be more than happy to give you a 30-minute free audit, absolutely zero strings attached. I'd love to chat in any way, shape, and form to see how exactly you can jump onto your project and crush it from there. But yeah, my one and only pitch of the video. Outside of that, if you have any other questions, guys, feel free to drop them down in the comments below. I'll get back as soon as possible. Any, ideas for builds, any good feedback, bad feedback, like anything and everything, I'm more than happy to hear it out here and just provide more content that's useful to you. But yeah, in any way, shape, and form, hope you enjoyed the video, and peace.